Okay, well, thank you, Oliver and XLH UK, for inviting me to give you a brief update on some work we're doing at the University of Oxford in collaboration with yourselves. My name's Kassim Javaid. I'm a rheumatologist at Oxford and lead investigator for the study with Rafa Pinedo Villanueva, who's our health economist. So I'm going to go through these 4 points. But first, I want to introduce the team. We work in Nuffield Department of Orthopedics, Rheumatology, Musculoskeletal Sciences, or NDORMS at the University of Oxford. We have Joe Barrett and Nathaniel Gray, who are the programming leads, or they're much more than programmers. They're really talented web designers, and they've done all of the work behind the Really platform. Managed by Alison, who does all of the hard work, talking to the patients and being the glue for the study. And then we're linking in with Rafa and his team in health economics to really understand the impact of XLH on people living with XLH and caregivers. We're also really proud to be working closely with Oliver and Sarah at XLH UK, and this is a study that's been funded through a very generous support from Kira Kieran. So I just want to bring everyone up to speed. So XLH is a genetic disease where the FEX gene's not working, and basically the body makes more of a hormone called FGF23. And through effects on the kidney and by suppressing vitamin D, you get a low level of phosphate on the blood, which has quite a wide range of effects on the skeleton. But we also now know it affects many other parts of the body. So you're familiar with the effects on dental abscesses, also causes premature hearing loss, and it can have lots of other effects on both the joints, the bones, the spinal cord, the skull, and the muscles. And we're finding more and more about this. And traditionally, the old treatment, we can say now, is we've used activated vitamin D and phosphate supplements to try and pour more phosphate into the system, try and keep up with the losses from the kidney. But these treatments have the side effects you're all familiar with, as I've listed here, but they never really worked very well because they could never bring the phosphate into normal, just make it not as low. And then we had this revolutionary treatment called burosumab, which is an antibody that basically removes all the excess FGF23 in the blood and basically stops the bucket from leaking. And there have been two major studies, one in growing skeletons and one in adults aged 18 to 65 who had symptoms of XLH. And in the adult study, I'll just focus on, because this is an adult study, but the same thing happened in the pediatric study. You can see here over weeks, when you start burosumab, you get a dramatic improvement and normalization of the body's phosphate levels in the blood, which is quite remarkable, and we haven't seen with any other treatment for this condition. And that translated into less pain over time. And here you can see in a very long study up to well over a year, how pain goes down in the blue lines. The light blue line is where some people stopped. And here you can see the light blue line spikes up again if you stop, but then goes back to normal when you restart, showing how reversible the pain is with the treatment. And after a very long journey, which Oliver and I worked on together, NICE approved the drug. So NICE TA 993 recommended within its marketing authorization, that is for the treatment of XLH adults, burosumab can be used in the NHS. Really importantly, there are no entry criteria or stopping rule. It's basically adults aged 18 years or older who've got either XLH confirmed by genetics, very strong family history, or discussion at a multidisciplinary team meeting or MDT. And burosumab is given in line with national recommendations. I'm working with Oliver and others, including the Brittle Bone Society. We worked to set up something called the Rare Disease Collaborative Network. And within this, we now have these hospitals within England and Wales that can give burosumab. These are the hospitals in England, and we're still waiting for clarity from Wales. So everything seems okay. Well, as you know, the devil's always in the detail. And actually, while this evidence was really good, there were very clear evidence gaps. And the evidence gaps are sort of listed here. So the first thing is we didn't know much about the caregiver impact. XLH affects the whole family, whether there's a whole family of people living with XLH or whether you're the first individual with XLH in your family. We had very little data on the caregiver impact from improving health with burosumab in adults. Very little data on transition. So what happens when you go between a growing skeleton to actually an 18-year-old? There's a gap there, and we call that transition. As I mentioned, the study initially looked at adults with symptoms to try and reduce symptoms. But what about using burosumab to prevent symptoms? So actually arrest the progression of the disease on those multiple parts of the body I showed earlier. And then finally, the benefit in older adults. The trial was limited to 18 to 65-year-olds, and we don't know if you give it to much older adults, what's the scale of benefit. And the benefit is actually really important because we've traditionally focused on the skeleton. I've already described other organs. We mustn't forget the effect on mental health, social health. And we really want to know about the benefits before versus after starting burosumab, as well as quality of life and productivity from the caregiving. And then look at that through the lens of hospital teams, adults living with XLH, family caregivers. So what are we going to do? We're going to use 2 ways to get the evidence to actually answer these very important questions. On the left, we have people and their families living with XLH, and we're inviting them to join the Rudy study, which I'll focus on now. But also we have a process for getting researchers to look at the hospital level data to see what they can find. So working with XLH, we've refined this study platform called Rudy that is now much more XLH focused, and I'll show you how that works. So first of all, there's lots of information about burosumab available. So do go to the XLH UK website. It has an excellent leaflet on drug treatments with hyperphosphatemia, including burosumab or Crysvita, as its brand name is. And it includes all that information about from what is XLH to how to get the most out of your treatment. And then for clinicians, because we want to see what the impact of implementation is, through the Rare Disease Collaborative Network, we've actually got a website and it's got a document that goes through how to use burosumab for adults. Now, clinicians are all different in how they're using the document, but we basically we've given them tips for how to standardize the baseline assessment, asking these questions. What to look for in the laboratory test by doing these tests, including a urine test before you start. And then finally, what sort of ultrasounds or other imaging are required. And as well as the baseline, we've given guidelines or recommendations on what to do 3, 6, and 12 months and 6 monthly after starting in terms of questions related to burosumab, questions related to XLH activity, which are pretty much the same as a baseline to see if there's any change, and then the repeat of the blood tests and the renal kidney scan every 2 years. But we know this is being used variably between sites, which is fine. It's not a mandatory guideline. It's not something set in stone. It's a set of recommendations. But it really helps us as researchers if we can get as much of this data as possible. And we realize that many of these questions actually can be answered by people living with XLH. And to do that, we want to use the Rudy study to answer those questions. So I'm going to do something I very rarely do. I'm actually going to go onto the live site and show you how it works. So a bit nervous about this because usually the live site's only accessible by people with rare diseases. So I'll just pull up my my screen. There it is. So you basically, how do you get there? Let me just pull it.
You're still in presentation mode at the minute.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oops, like that. Maybe if I end the presentation mode, it will let me pull in the Google page. Okay, yeah. Okay, so if you just put in rudystudy.org, that will take you to the website. And the website's got a really nice animation from one of our team. It's got information on what is Rudy, project news, and lots more information, and also the website links. So if you go to find out more, it tells us what is Rudy. You've already seen the pictures of who we are. But in project news, and we'll add the XLH UK logo to this, is a little very short summary of why this study is so important. So you haven't already joined, you can just go to the homepage and you can join us now. And there's just a couple of tips here. So you can join in three sort of ways. You either are an adult living with XLH, you click this one. You have a child age under 16 who has XLH, then you can register them as a parent. Or if you're a relative or a partner of someone with XLH, you can click here. And that's really important for people who give any level of care. So I'll join as an adult, most of you will be doing, but the only thing to remember, each of these needs its own email. So you could be an adult who's also registering their child, who also then has to go back in and register as a family member. So it's kind of weird because you're answering the question, you can register in different ways, but if you want to, you can. Usually people just register as an adult. You have to say you've read the information sheet, and if you click on the information sheet button, it will take you to the sheet and you can download it. And then it will open up and we'll give you the information sheet about the study. Once you've read the information sheet and you're happy with it, you can click it and you put your name in. So excellent. You put your real name in. I'm just putting a dummy one in so Alison can find it and take it off. I put Cass, so it's really easy for her. So okay. And then you put your real date of birth in and your details. You have to put a UK postcode in because the ethics approval only applies to the UK. And then you can select where you heard about the study. And then you can just put your email address in, and this is the email address that you can reset your password with. I'll just put a fake one in there. Then put your password in. It has to be at least 8 characters, and it can be any combination of the criteria there. And then you create your account. And then you have to say what's wrong with you, what diagnosis is. So if you just type in XLH, it will bring it up. If you have other rare diseases, you can put them in, but usually XLH, it's enough really. That will get you in. And then you have to say you've read the information sheet, so you confirm that again. You understand the aim of the Rudy study. If you've got more questions, then press this button. It will take you to a phone number and a calendar. But if you've got no more questions, you can press here, and that will then take you to the consent page. And here you can see you could have to read, do take your time to read all of this and to tick the ones you agree with. If you don't agree, you can press a cross or you can press a tick. You can change this later on. So don't feel like you have to plan this for years to come. You can change this as long as you can access the internet any time of day. And that's your personal preferences for how you want to take part in the study. So this is a study on how you want to share your data, how you want the data to be used later in life, after life, and then how to be used for samples, then how you want to be contacted. So most people are happy to be contacted by any time. How you want to be contacted for progress of the study, and then how often. And then if you want to take part in sub-studies or contact for future studies, you can tick that. And then you give your consent. And then what happens is Rudy is now with your account linking them to your consent options, and it knows what rare disease you've got. It's now creating your own personal sort of page. So you just say, was information was okay, do that. Registration is complete, and now you take part. And when you do this, so basically you've got the library, which has got all the documents you need. There's a timeline page. Just move this out of the way. There's a profile page, which is more about you, but the real thing is a to-do page. And the to-do page is the page you land on. And we really want you to complete these questionnaires first. We've had a test. It does take a while because this information is really precious. There are very few adults with XLH in the world. So we really want, if you're going to enter data, enter as much as you can. So we have 18 questionnaires here. If you still like filling in questionnaires, you can fill the other ones in. But these are the ones we really want you to fill in a baseline and then every 6 months, and we'll send you a reminder. So every 6 months, you'll be invited to fill out the questionnaires again. Whoops. And here are the questionnaires. There's one about XLH and it affects you, one about medications, bones and joints, hearing, quality of life, something about how you work, whether you're retired or whether you're still working, and then if you're a carer. I'll just start with this one first. We had a lot of discussion on what is a carer. It's actually, do you provide any care or support? And then if you do, for example, give someone a lift to the hospital clinic, that's some support. Most people aren't paid. And then you just say how many people you care for. And one could be an adult with XLH. And one could be a child. And you just save that. And once you've saved that, you can get all these other questionnaires to fill in. The other questionnaires are actually you should find them quite useful. I'll just start, this is the one you probably start on first. Just to give you a heads up, it looks at the body, and we really want to look at how your symptoms change over time. So if you've got no symptoms, then just answer no, and you've got no pain, and just say no to all of them. And click that you've got no pain. Or if you have got pain, it will ask you some restricted symptoms. Is it due to your rare disease? So usually it will be. And then what's your maximum pain in the last week? And you can enter it there and you can keep going all the way through. If you miss out something, it will give you a sort of, say you get that, you can save it. It will save it, but it will say that there are some things that need a response. So here you haven't said about your right wrist. And it's important to say no, because don't forget, another very important question we don't know is, will the treatment prevent disease? So actually, we want loads of people who answer no, because then we can see how long do they stay no as they grow older, because we have a rough idea of how symptoms progress over time. It does seem a bit pernickety, but it does give us lots of valuable information. So I'll just click that off, and you can see as you click them, all the red boxes disappear. I've got a few more here. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, then just a few more questions. So back pain is really important. So do you have back pain? And then how bad is it? On worst been in the week. Do you use codeine, morphine, or any of those drugs? Are you the first one in your family to be diagnosed? And have you ever had a fracture? Some people have, some people haven't. If you have, it does open this sort of body map when your last fracture was. If you can't remember, maybe it was like 25 years ago, you just put down the year like that. Maybe it was in your femur. Or maybe it was in your whole femur, you're not sure. You can just color it in there. And then you can say it's related to your rare disease. And that's that. And then if you had a dental abscess or not, most people will have done. And then the month and the year of the last dental abscess. So maybe it was 20 years ago. Are you in education? And don't worry if you're retired, we'll come on to that later. And then just something about benefits, if you're in any benefits, might be. And that's the XLH form done. And then you can submit that. And this sort of pattern of saving and submitting should be across all of them. And you can see it's done now. Then we've got a form on use of burosumab, vitamin D, questionnaire on pain, height and weight. We've got a very nice stiffness map, because stiffness was actually an unexpected benefit of the study. So we really dug deep into that. Something around the type of pain you have, and then you can add more fractures here if you want. Something about hearing, something about dental health, and something about a dental questionnaire about how many teeth you have left. And then the quality of life, this is sort of a standard one, and something around your sleep, mental well-being, tiredness. And this is a quite interesting one that the team selected about how having, particularly on back issues, affects your ability to function. And I've already mentioned employment and the caregiver. So that's the platform for the to-do page. And the other thing we want to do then is for you to just check your personal details. And it's really useful if you could add your consultants. So for example, if you see me, I work in Oxford, so you might want to look in Oxford. And you look for the hospital. So just say John Radcliffe. So just see my hospital isn't there, it's written as a John Radcliffe, and then just put my name in. And this is really important because we will then know that if I want to get more information about you, we can contact Dr. Javaid at the John Radcliffe Hospital, and with the ethics, we can then get information. Like I've already said, you can alter your consent options here. You can add your GP. We probably won't use that in the study, and then you can add more information. One thing we are quite interested in is your diagnostic history. So were you diagnosed at birth, or did you have a delayed diagnosis? You can add that here, and this fills in a form. We can add in, did you have symptoms when you were diagnosed or not? Some people are diagnosed genetically will have symptoms, and then you can see the questions around date of symptoms, description. And a really interesting one is where the hospital, the final diagnosis was made, but what other diagnoses were you given and who else did you see? And then to give back to you is that you now have your everything you need is given back to you. So as with other studies, you fill in the forms, you never see them. Actually, all of your data will be given back to you. And as you fill in more forms, more fractures, and all of this, this will then become a timeline that you can then put into a print mode. And you know, some people have used that for their clinics. If you ever need help, just click this button. You can give us feedback, and we can then get in touch with you, and you can say something's not working. So that's a really platform, and we have really worked quite hard to make sure that it is as good as we can for you, and we are always open for more feedback. So almost done. I'll stop talking soon. So what have we done? Well, we're here today. We've got the online patient launch. Myself and Nathaniel and a few others will be there on the patient day. Do come down to the wonderful Motorcycle Museum and taste some fantastic sandwiches at the lunch break, and hear from us all again on the about the where we're up to, and also more information. We have had one sort of delay. We were trying to get a scientist doctor to join us, but that's been delayed. And that's why we're really putting a little bit more emphasis on the people with XLH joining the study. And what we're thinking of doing is adding in a function later on where people can add the date and their phosphate value to the RUDY study. So in summary, burosumab is a game changer for XLH, and due to the NHS provision, it is actually a unique opportunity to build the evidence case for generations to come. So in some countries, they don't have burosumab at all because some of the evidence gaps. In other countries, it's very limited, so maybe to by age or by symptoms. And we think by building the evidence base for children, young adults with a few symptoms, and older adults with many symptoms, as well as caregivers, and that's why we have a wide team, including health economists. We can really move the field forward. So what's our objective? Well, we want you all to register. If you're not registered, if you meet any of these buckets, then please do register as soon as you can. And it's really important we have your follow-up forms. Even if you have got no symptoms, you say, oh, well, nothing's changed. We do need to know that. If we can show that burosumab prevents onset of symptoms, that is amazing. And that would be a real change for generations to come. So that's what I was going to talk about today. Rafa, did you want to mention anything about the importance of the health economics? I know you've done some exciting work with caregivers. I'll be quiet now and stop sharing.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think we can also thank you for that, by the way. It's always good. I've seen this many times and it's always good. I even have questions and things I want to ask you about the platform, but it's great to see it. And just very briefly, because I don't want to take much more time. I rather hear if there are any questions. Just to let you know that all the data that goes in there is incredibly useful for us to be able to do the research that Kassim has been describing for you. In my case, as a health economist, the sort of things that we're interested in is, well, if not to go into the whole health economics of it, but we're interested in understanding the benefits in quality of life for people and their families, and to see how that is realized at the same time that there are cost implications, for the NHS, but also for the families themselves. And not always those cost implications are greater costs, but there might be some benefit in terms of costs, because if through better treatment, people can maybe come back to work, paid work. Uh, we're all interested and politicians all want to hear about productivity in the country and people being able to come back to work. Or if they need less care from a family member, that family member might be able to go back to work. Things like that, that are not generally of interest to many people doing clinical research. For us, they go hand in hand. So we look at the clinical benefit, but we want to understand, and that's where I and my team come in to see what happens with the people who have XLH, what happens to their family in terms of quality of life improvements over time or progression, whatever that is, to understand it, and what the whole economic situation is in terms of using hospitals, GP practices, and so forth, and having other social care next to the health care. And maybe where treatments like burosumab may have an impact on that. So I'll just keep it like that for now, and happy to answer questions if you have any. But back to you, Cass, however you want to.
Oh, well, thank you. And it really is a collaboration between all of us to get this. We really want to make this work for you, because for the patients and for the wider community. Because as we generate this evidence, decision makers can use it as well as clinicians. Oliver, did you want to add anything, or I know this will be recorded and then given and put on platforms. Any observations or comments you want to make?
Yeah, of course. Just to start off with, obviously congratulating yourself and the Rudy team. It's as we learned at the beginning of the call, the Rudy project's been going on for many years now, and to see an award like this, a multi-year research project at this level of detail at this point in time, is just phenomenal. And I'm very happy, and you guys should all be very proud, and creates an exceptional opportunity for us at a global level at benefiting not just UK patients, but patients with XLH all over the world. And and just to reiterate what you said, I know you've already gone over this point, but there are countries around the world that will be waiting on specific evidence like what the Rudy study is going to be collecting, and that is going to have an impact on people's lives. It's phenomenal. So I think at the end of the day, because we've got this grant from all the hard work, that the opportunity this creates is just so important. So I think now it's about drawing in the patient community, inspiring, increasing recruitment, improving the retention, reminding people that you need to return to the Rudy study every 6 months, maintain that information. And together on this journey, we'll end up with, I'm hoping, some amazing research papers that's going to prove the best guidance and methodologies in using burosumab in certain populations. I mean, we have to remember there are gaps in knowledge. As you say, that transition is just so important. There are so many families that have problems with accessing treatment at young ages and such critical points in their time in their career. Think about the times in which you want to be going off and studying or traveling the world or starting a family, and to have your medicine taken away from you at that point in your career is hugely significant. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide the data and the evidence to show other clinicians and people around the world and other researchers that that burosumab is either effective or ineffective or should be tailored to this amount. You know, all of these factors are playing into this. I think that probably covers everything. You know, this, as I said, this is an opportunity for us to give back, and this is a critical moment. And I think that rallying us all together for the community day on the 1st of June is going to be brilliant. I'm hoping for lots of people to attend that event, and looking forward to meeting you, Rafa, in person. I hope you're going to be there, and of course seeing Kassim there as well. I don't have any. I don't really have any questions actually, unless Maria or Paula, you've got any questions or anything you want to add in. Feel free to come off mute.
I was just going to say about thank you for that, Kassim. It's good to have like a summary, a bit rounded up like that. And there's bits that when you've been doing it for years, you don't appreciate. There's some other things that dip into. And presumably, I mean, I've recently done some questionnaires, but when I get the next 6 months through, they will be different. They will be the ones you've shown us, the updated versions.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we'll for those of you who are already part of Rudy, we think about out of there are about 190 registrants. I think about 30% are regularly completing their questionnaires. So if you haven't completed your questionnaires, it's not a problem. You can go to the website and you can actually reset your password. As long as you remember the email you registered with, you can reset your password. And if you don't, forget on your email, you can contact us. And once you reset your password, you then get the reset. If you are regularly contributing, brilliant. At your next phase, you will then get the updated questionnaires because we really want the value to come out. And with the support we have, we will now commit to coming on every month, tell you how far we've got. We need to start analyzing the data. We see how people are coming on, how the questionnaires are going. Are there some questionnaires that are a bit buggy and people don't like and we can tweak? Or are the questionnaires just being filled out really well and we can already say the really important insights? Because even the baseline data will be really fascinating. How many people are completely asymptomatic versus how many people are having problems with mental health, productivity, and other aspects of their life.
Because the skeleton one you showed us, that's new, and that's looked super good. Because the previous one was that kind of body where you said, oh yeah, it's the red, but it would turn your shoulder red or whatever when you clicked it. So you had one body, and then the questions were all kind of, well, is pain worse or better? And it's like, well, it's worse in my shoulder, but it's not so good in my hip. And what about my ankle? You couldn't fine tune it to individual body parts. It was an all or nothing.
And that's why we've also, it's a bit repetitive, but we always ask also, where is it? And do you think it's from your XLH? Because some people might have had like a skiing accident and then really bad. And then you think, well, that's not my XLH. It's because I was hit by a bus or whatever. So we do that. It is a bit, and we really want to explain to the community why it's so detailed. We spent a lot of time thinking about it, working with the XLH UK team, just to make sure that it is split up. Because you're right, often it says, you know, how bad is your pain? And you go, well, where are you asking us? My back, my shoulder, my ankle. Now we can actually divide it up, and then we can see, oh, it's really interesting. Your ankle pain hasn't got any worse, but you've got knee pain on the other hip. Or you still got ankle pain, but you have not got pain anywhere else. So it has stopped the progression. And it's this repeated every 6 months, just watching how you get along is going to be an amazing, it's going to be amazing. If all 194 people filled in their questionnaires every 6 months, we would solve so many big questions very quickly. And if everyone who's got a child who is like 10, or 11 or 12, with different questionnaires for children, and filled it in, and then we can map them through the transition, that would also be amazing. Some children are finishing very early, some children are finishing in their 16 or 15, and some children are finishing in their 17, going straight on to adults. With a real mixture of children stopping at different ages. And if we could capture that, that would, like Oliver mentioned, it would give evidence. We can say it's terrible, but you know, we have to have at some level some numbers or some metrics that show how things are changing over time. But that's our aspiration, Oliver's and ours, and Rafa's and everyone else, and Alison and the family. We've built it for you. Please use it, and then we will give it back to you. We will let you know what we found, and you will, and maybe you personally won't benefit, but it will benefit someone down the street.
My final thing I was going to say was because when I originally did this, it was presumably because my consultant, I'm pretty sure it would have been Elaine Murphy, said to me, you know, there's a study, you
Yeah.
like log on and do this. So, I mean, I presume all the consultants do
Yeah.
encourage their patients to get on with it. Maybe that it would be a good time to push it to the consultants to say, can you have another go at your patients to
Yeah,
engage with them?
you're quite right. We have got, we're doing work with XLH UK, but we're also doing work with the network to do that. And we're doing it step by hospital to really understand, spend some time with them, how they how they're managing their adults, do they need any help with the guideline and the assessments, and really working with that. But Maria, you know how busy I am. I have the same, I run the study, and you know, I'll go through a clinic and think, oh, I forgot to mention Rudy. It's so busy, there's so many things we have to think about. It often flies off. So we want to put as much of it out there. But it's almost like the patient saying, you know, can I join Rudy? And you go, oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, please go, and do that. We really think because the NHS is under tremendous pressure, and we will, you know, we can talk about the access to our hospitals is not as is variable because of the pressure in the NHS. But that really puts almost more onus on the community to work with us to try and get that more equitable so the people are getting access to treatment they need.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, well, I'll close off now, Oliver. I'll see you for the well, if this is being recorded, I shouldn't say I'll see you in a few weeks' time because that would be kind of weird. But I'll catch up with you next time. And thank you again for the very gracious invitation. And we'll come back every month and give you an update on how we're doing.
Thank you, everyone.
Officially launched. The website went live last night, so you can go and play.
Brilliant. Take care, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Take
Bye
care,
now.
everyone. Bye. Good to see you.